Obviously, we saw in the last election on January 6th, Republicans using some of the vagaries of the Electoral Count Act to challenge it in ways that had never been challenged before. And this is a law that's over a century old, one that was the product of really some back and forth negotiation when it was created. And it does have some things that need to be clarified. And so what this ECRA reform would do is to clarify, first of all, the vice president's role, which is incredibly important. It's a ceremonial role. You're not determining whether or not we are still a democracy. That's not the power of the vice president. It raises the threshold for objecting, as you had on your screen there. It has key reforms in terms of us getting a false slate of electors. And it also has some other important provisions around if a natural catastrophe occurs. I have some problems with it. It's not perfect. It's not exactly how I would have written it. But
what are your problems with it, Congressman?
Yeah, well, I think the judicial reform part is a little bit hasty. It means that you can pretty quickly get to the Supreme Court with arguments that have to be heard on their merits, which if you looked at the last election when I don't know if it was 60 lawsuits or so that the Kraken, when they said they're going to unleash the Kraken, all of those lawsuits would have likely had to end up going to the Supreme Court. They would have been knocked down just like they were all over the country, but it could slow things down. I would love to see the threshold maybe even higher than 20% of Congress needed to be the threshold to object. But really, as you pointed out with the op-ed, we're all kind of just trying to find a way to make sure that the will of the people can be heard and enacted. And that's difficult to do if you have bad actors in the system, because at some point, somebody, if they want to, can be a problem.
I appreciate the half loaf approach, especially given the sort of the number of days you are now down to get things done, especially because there's a whole bouquet of things the Democrats are trying to get done in the next few weeks. Katherine Clark was on Meet the Press earlier today outlining some of those initiatives. Take a listen.
Have to pass a budget. And Chairwoman Rosa DeLauro, the chair of our Appropriations Committee, is at that negotiation table 24/7, making sure that we are putting together a blueprint of our values in how we spend our money. We do not want to leave that to the hands of the GOP, who are already threatening to take down our economy and hold our budget hostage.
Your sense of what's expected to be included in that budget, what you want to see included?
Yeah, well, we got to keep the government open. I mean, this is a terrible time around Christmas to even be talking about this. And we've heard from my Republican colleagues that they will try and use the budget process, even the debt ceiling, which if we default on our debt could crash the global economy. They're going to try and use that to roll back some of the laws that we just passed in this Congress, especially the Inflation Reduction Act, and even to make cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Now, you'll notice, Alicia, that in the last campaign, they didn't talk a lot about making cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Now we're seeing what their real hand is that that's clearly where they want to go. And they're willing to hold the entire American, really global economy hostage by using the debt ceiling to try and do that. So we want to try and avoid it. Some of this is going to come down to a couple of senators on our side in the Senate, whether or not they're going to allow us to handle this in this lame duck, or whether or not this can is going to get kicked, unfortunately, into the next Congress.